My fellow Nerdikins, welcome back to another episode of That's So Nerdy. Today we've got the winning deck profile from our last video, and that is going to be Ramp Vegeta. SS4 Vegeta right here. Alright, so I really love this deck for sure, 100%. Vegeta is my favorite character, and SS4 is by far my favorite transformation. So when they announced this leader, it actually is what really got me into the game. It was the first set that I bought a booster box. First time I got an SCR. Shout out Baby Hatch. And if you want, that's actually, I believe, maybe my second or third video that I pulled it. It's up here on the channel. You can watch it. It felt so good. And now, I mean, it still feels just as good to pull SCRs, but well, just like sex, there's nothing like the first time, right? Well, anyway, I digress. Let's go ahead and get into this. Everybody should know what this leader does by now, but for those who don't, on the Unawakened side, when you attack, you draw a card, and if you deal damage to your opponent, you get to look at the top card of your deck. If it is a mono blue card, then you get to put it into your energy in rest mode. You get to awaken at 4 life, and then you only get to draw 1 card, which is my least favorite part about it, but it makes sense because if you were able to draw 2 or draw 1, restand 1, it might be kind of busted. But on the front side, once per turn when you attack, you draw a card. Once per turn, if your opponent activates a counter, you get to restand him. And that's not just against him, that's just any counter, period. And then he also maintains the ramp ability. So if you deal damage to your opponent, then you will be able to ramp a card off the top of your deck. So we're going to jump straight into the Unison package, and the reason I'm running this Unison is because I do not own the UI Kamehameha cards, so I run 4 copies of Son Goku Power of the Golden Great Ape. This card was errated on its first activate main right here, as well as its -4, so this costs 4 energy now to draw 2 cards, and this -4, instead of bottom decking 5 mono blue cards from your drop, you only do 1 and then draw 2 cards. Or is it bottom deck, or do you shuffle them in? Oh no, you shuffle them in. So it was 5 before, now it's just 1. I mean, doesn't really matter that much. You don't really ever use those abilities. Typically, you're just using him for his +1 ability, which is to give your leader plus 10,000 for the turn. Which comes in really comes in really handy when you're trying to swing in to get those ramps. And having 25k dual attacker in your leader is just really strong in my opinion. I don't know why more people don't just run this Unison inherently, but I mean, to each their own, I guess. And we're running 2 copies of Boonison because it's Boonison. So for those who don't know, 20k double strike blocker, +0 gets you to draw a card, and at the beginning of your opponent's main phase you get to restand in energy. And then the -1, if your opponent attacks with a battle card, then you get to bottom deck one of their battle cards. It doesn't ignore barrier, but still super strong ability. And then we're running 4 copies of my Bulwark of the Future. This is our searcher. It searches out our Unisons or Trunks Future card, which will help you to search out God Sealing, but it literally just searches out the Unison and God Sealing in this deck. But I haven't been able to find a searcher that works better. So if anybody has any suggestions, go ahead and leave them down in the comment section below. But I think for this build, unfortunately, I have to go for Mai's the searcher. Super combo, I mean, it's the one you have to run in this Vegeta build, or any SS4 build in my opinion, is Zeno Edge of Space. You could run a split of whatever you want to, but I wouldn't suggest it because Zeno's going to help you get anything that you ramp into your energy back into your hand. Obviously, you can only do that during your opponent's turn when you're at 5 or less life, but still really, really strong ability. Comes in clutch all the time, literally all the time. Then we're running 4 copies of SS Vegeta, the Interceptor. Really good card out of Realm of the Gods. It is a 20k dual attacker and comes out for 3. It's also a counter, which I don't typically use it for. Sometimes I will if my opponents burn their counter plays for the game or for the turn for the game. If they burn their counter plays for the turn, I might counter with Vegeta and play him out that way. But most of the time, I'm playing him out on my turn and using his ability to bottom deck just any 2 cards that don't have barrier. Really, really strong ability. And then our floodgate for the deck, well, I guess technically one of our floodgates, but our main floodgate for the deck is Vegeta Ready to Rumble. What is that? Sorry guys, I got something inside my... There we go. Vegeta Ready to Rumble. It comes out for 4. It's a 20k blocker. It's also a counter attack, and when he hits the board, if your opponent wants to attack any more for the turn, they have to pop an energy. So that is really, really strong because 9 times out of 10, your opponent, like when he hits the board, your opponent's going to stop their turn because they don't want to pop the energy, especially since he's a blocker and he's going to stop one damage from going, another damage from going in that turn anyway. Unless they counterplay him or KO him somehow or bottom deck him or just get him off the board. That's just more defense that they're going to need to get around while popping energy to try and do it. So most of the time when he hits the board, then that's turnover. Last of our 4 drops, running 2 copies of Tapion the Calamity Challenger. This is just a little bit of a pressure card, plus it's a cantrip, so when you play him out, Spirit Boost 1, Limit 1 for 1 blue energy. If you have 3 or more energy and a Unison card with 15,000 power or more, you play him out. And he's got 20k double strike. Just really strong card, and honestly one of my favorite artworks in the game. I love how good this card looks like. Just incredible. I love it. Like, it looks so good. And then, of course, it's a blue deck, running a Unison. Got a Searcher to search it out. Running 4 copies of God Sealing. Just because it's the free counter. If you don't know what God Sealing does, then you probably don't play a lot of blue, or you're brand new to the game. But you discard him, and he bounces back anything that's being played that doesn't have Deflect. It is a counter window 1 counter, so if you try and hit something in window 2, it's not going to work. But yeah, he's so good. He hits literally everything that doesn't have Deflect. Excuse me. And then getting into some more of our 5 drops, we're running, of course, 2 of the Baby Golden Apes. I mean, it's the counter for blue. Really, really strong card. Because even if you go in for a swing, you counter their counter that they tried to drop on you, and they're still able to combo out of that, you have another 30k triple strike. So pretty much if you're using him and he hits the board, that's pretty much going to be game over for your opponent. Another one of our 5 drops is SS Kaba Proud Zenith. It is a 19k dual attack blocker. It's got an auto that it restands himself. He restands himself at the end of my turn. Yeah, at the end of my turn, he restands himself. So you get 2 swings and he restands. If you play him during your turn, you get to draw 2 cards. If you play it during your opponent's turn, you get to bottom deck a 4 cost or less, and it does get around barrier because it doesn't say to choose, it just says to place something at the bottom. So it actually does get around barrier. And if you have 3 blue or yellow cards in your battle area or combo area, you can play them out for 3 instead of 5. So that's really good for some sneaky removal and some added defense, since he is a dual attack blocker. So he's actually adding a little bit of pressure and defense all at the same time. Really, really good card. I don't think it's slept on, though, because it is kind of conditional to get him out, since, like I said, you do have to have 3 blue battle cards either in your battle area or combo area, and a lot of times decks are really able to keep boards clear lately, and sometimes you just don't reach it and he becomes a charge target. But I mean, it is what it is. He's still a really good card, and when you are actually able to play him, he puts in work. Then we're running 2 copies of Kale, the Rampaging Demon. Such a strong card. Both of these came out of Saiyan Showdown. This is definitely the stronger of the 2, but such a strong card. It is a 30k deflect double striker that when you play it out, if you have 5 energy, oh sorry, didn't mean to bump the table. If you have 5 energy when you play her out, then you get to bottom deck everything with 3 or less. Oh no, you choose all their battle cards with 3 or more and send them to the bottom of the deck. But if you have 7 or more energy when you play her out, and you play her out without using a skill, then you bottom deck their entire board, ignoring barrier. Super, super strong. And she also gains dual attack and barrier. So she becomes a 30k dual attack double striker with barrier. So essentially she can't be messed with the turn she comes out, especially if it's if you have 7 energy already. Another one of our floodgates. We're running 2 copies of Son Goku Miraculous Transformation. So during your opponent's turn, this card comes out for 3 instead of 6. Comes out in rest mode, and while this card is in your battlefield in rest mode, your opponent can attack your leader with battle cards. So either be ready to defend your Unison or be willing to lose your Unison if you're using him and your opponent has a really wide board. Because that's typically what will happen, is if you use him your opponent has a wide board, they're going to try and use that wide board to take out your resources that are on the board. Maybe trying to swing into the Goku to get him out of there so they can actually swing into your leader with battle cards. But a lot of the times they'll just swing into Unison until the next turn and then try and remove Goku another way, because, I mean, though he does have deflect and barrier, there's a lot of ways to get around barrier right now. So, I mean, when he's good, he's really good, but I mean, it is what it is. And then the last of our 6 drops, 2 copies of SS4 Vegeta, Rise of the Super Warrior. 30k blocker. When you play him out, you look at the top 4 cards of your deck. If they are mono blue, or you can add any number of mono blue cards to your hand or energy, or place them back in your deck. So really, really strong, and he has an auto that he restands himself at the end of your turn. So you actually get a 30k swing and he restands himself, which is really good. Another one of our little closeout tactics, and this should be no surprise to anybody, is Android 17, Turning the Tide. Critical, deflect, you and your opponent both pitch your hand, and then your opponent shuffles their drop into their deck. So pretty much if he's hitting the board, if you're not closing out the game that turn, there may be a good chance that you're actually going to lose on the crackback, even though they don't have a hand either, but you also don't have anything to defend yourself. So it's not great. It doesn't feel great if you get him out and don't win on that turn. But typically if he hits the board, you're going to win. Same with Kale. If they hit the board, you're typically winning that turn. And then the last little piece of, I guess you could say, spice, is Ultra Instinct Saiyan Son Goku. He EX evolves on top of Miraculous Transformation for 2 energy and pitching a card. And he's got 35,000 triple strike. And when he hits the board, he bounces your opponent's entire board back to their hand. And I believe Yeah, this also gets around barrier because it doesn't say to choose. It just says your opponent returns all their cards to their hand. And then this card itself cannot be comboed with or comboed against in battle. So your opponent can't combo against this card, so they have to counterattack him. So a nice little way to end the game, especially if your opponent's already at 3 life, is EX Evolve him on top of the Goku. If he manages to hit the board and stay there, you swing with him. If you as long as you've got the energy, and then your opponent counters, you counter, and then they're dead because they can't combo against him. So that's game over. There's nothing they can do about that. So let's hop in. You know what? Before I get into the extra cards, it's not going to be any secret that the SCR is going to be Baby Hatch. So we'll just throw that out there now before we get into the extra cards. So extra cards are going to be pretty obvious. Running 4D Magic because it's the Sparking Negate for blue, restands 2 energy. So, I mean, why wouldn't you run it? 4 Sensu Bean because, again, it's blue, gives one of your cards 25k, or 25k, gives one of your cards 5k boost for the turn and restands 2 energy. I mean, it's blue, so you run Bean. Running 4 of the Beerus Destroys Realm of the Gods card because, like I said before, I don't own any of the UI Kamehameha, and this is a pretty decent substitute. I'd like to run both the Kamehameha and this, as well as my Unison, because that's just gonna make for some huge swings, but I can't afford to buy a playset of the UI Kamehameha, so I'll have to maybe just buy them one at a time, and even then it's still like 24 bucks a pop, and it doesn't feel great. Running 2 copies of Chilled's Army because it's the token counter, so I mean, there's not really much explaining that needs to be done there. Oh, I didn't explain what Beerus Destroys does. So for those who don't know, if you use it offensively, you give one of your cards plus 10,000 power for the battle, and you get to bottom deck one of your opponent's cards with an energy cost greater than their energy. If you use it defensively, you give one of your cards 10,000 for the battle, and you bottom deck draw a card and bottom deck a 2-drop or less from your opponent's side of the field. So not quite as strong defensively, except for the fact that it's a cantrip. You're able to combo with it and you get a card back. And then if your opponent is trying to play the slow game and actually isn't attacking into you, you can play Result of Training. It's got an activate main that on this turn, even if you have 5 or more life, you can pay 5 energy, awaken, then restand 4 energy. So essentially you're paying 1 energy to awaken. As long as you have the 5 energy to initially sink into it, you get 4 of that back. And if you're awakening at a high life total in this deck, then your opponent's kind of in trouble. And then our last piece of tech is Tragedy Overground. That shouldn't be any surprise to anybody. It costs 9 to hit the field. You're always going to hard cast it when trying to play it. And when it hits the field, your opponent takes their entire board, ignoring barrier, and sticks it in their energy. And then from then on, if your opponent plays anything out with an energy cost of 4 or greater, it just gets played into their energy instead. So it's just like a constant counterplay that just, it ramps their energy, but if they can't play anything over a 3-drop, then it should be pretty easy to handle, unless like all their 3-drops, unless they're like dual attackers or somehow just get crazy strong. But that is the profile for Vegeta. If you like it, then go ahead and smash that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. Push the notification bell to be notified every time I drop a video. And if you have any questions or requests, then just let me know. I get back to everybody as soon as I can. So y'all just have a good night and stay